world is holding its breath, one step forward, or one step too far. This moment, right now, could shape the future. Not just for leaders, not just for armies, but for all of us. Because sometimes, peace doesn't break like glass. It bends and waits. Will we protect it? Or will we let it fall? Chapter 1. Old Ghosts Return. The Cold War ended long ago. Or did it? Tension grows, and two powers face each other once more. It started with a sound, a low, heavy sound, like thunder, far away. But this thunder came from the sea. In the north, near the Arctic Circle, fishermen saw something strange, a dark shape, large, quiet, moving through the icy waters. "A submarine?" one man asked. The others nodded. Their faces were pale. They didn't say more. They just watched and waited. Later, the news broke. An old Russian submarine, nuclear-powered, silent for years, now, suddenly, active again. In Washington, D.C., the air was thick, not with smoke, but with fear. The president met his team, military advisors, intelligence officers. They looked tired, angry, afraid. "This is no accident," said General Miller. "They're showing us they're still here." Someone whispered, "The Cold War is over." But the silence that followed said something else. It wasn't over. Not really. Not in their hearts. Mira was just a student, 22, studying history in Berlin. She thought the Cold War was history, old news, old ghosts. Her grandmother used to talk about it, how she lived in East Germany, how they couldn't travel, how they listened to Western music in secret, Elvis, the Beatles, a window to freedom. Mira smiled when she thought of that, but this morning her smile was gone, because her phone buzzed with an alert: Russian military submarine seen near NATO waters. Her professor explained it in class, not in a calm way, but with worry in his voice. "It's a message," he said. "They are reminding us. They never forgot." In Moscow, it was snowing. Cold winds blew through the city, and in a dark room, President Volkov watched the news. He said nothing, just stared. A young aide spoke. "The Americans are watching. NATO, too." Volkov nodded slowly, then said, "Let them watch. The bear may sleep, but it always wakes." That night, Mira sat at her desk. She opened a map, a world map, and her finger moved from one place to another: Berlin, Moscow, Washington, the Arctic. She thought about what it all meant. Why nations fight, even after so many years? Why fear returns, even after peace? She remembered something her grandmother once said. "Peace is not just the end of war. It's a choice we must make, again and again." Mira closed the map. Her eyes were wet. She didn't want another war, not for her, not for anyone. And still, the sea is quiet now, but deep below, shadows move, old machines, old fears, still alive. The Cold War may be over, but some ghosts don't sleep, not yet. Chapter 2. What is NATO? NATO is not just a name. It is a promise and a warning. But to Russia, it feels like a threat. It began after the war, the big one, World War II. Europe was broken. Cities were in ruins. People were scared. The world had changed. And not in a good way. In 1949, leaders from 12 countries met. They made a plan. They signed a treaty. They called it NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It was not just a group. It was a promise. If one of us is attacked, they said, we all fight back. Together. A family. A wall. A warning. For many people, NATO means safety. Countries like Germany, Poland, and Lithuania joined to feel protected. Today, NATO has 32 members, from the United States to Norway, from France to Finland. But not everyone feels safe when NATO grows. In Russia, there is fear, real fear, old fear. In schools, Russian children learn about history. They hear how their country was invaded. Not once, not twice, but many times. In 1941, Nazi Germany attacked. 27 million Russians died in that war. 27 million. It's a number too big to truly understand, but Russia remembers. So when NATO moves closer to its borders, Russia does not smile. It does not relax. It watches and waits. Ivan is 19 years old. He lives in St. Petersburg. He studies engineering, like his father. He plays football with friends. He listens to rap music on the bus. He is normal, just like any other teenager in the world. But last week, his class talked about NATO. The teacher called it dangerous. She said, "They want to control us, to surround us." Ivan didn't know what to think. Was it true, or just fear from the past? At home, he asked his grandmother. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I remember when the wall came down. We thought things would change, but now it feels cold again." On the other side of Europe, in Latvia, Anna is 17. She goes to school near the Russian border. She hears Russian on the street. Her grandparents were born in the Soviet Union. But Anna is proud to be Latvian. She is also proud to be in NATO. She says, "We are small, but we are not alone. That matters." Still, she wonders, if there is war again, what will happen to her city, her school, her home? NATO is not just a word. It is history. It is fear. It is hope. To some, it is a shield. To others, it looks like a sword. What is it, really? It depends on where you stand. It depends on what you remember. It depends on what you fear. But one thing is clear. Peace is not only about weapons, it's about trust, and trust is hard to build, but easy to lose. Chapter 3, The Ukraine Spark. In 2022, war returned to Europe. The invasion shocked the world and woke up history. Russia said security. NATO said aggression. It was cold that morning, February 24th, 2022. People in Ukraine woke up to sirens, loud, long, terrifying. They looked out their windows and saw fire, missiles, explosions, tanks rolling across the border. It was not a movie. It was not history. It was real. President Putin called it a special military operation. He said Russia felt unsafe. He said NATO was moving too close. He said Ukraine must never join. But the world did not agree. From London to Tokyo, leaders used a different word: invasion. In Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, people ran to the underground trains, not to travel, to hide. Families brought bags. Children held toys. Dogs barked. Babies cried. One woman, Lena, was a teacher. She held her daughter close and whispered, "I don't know where we will go, but we will go together." In Brussels, NATO held an emergency meeting, fast, serious, full of tension. Every seat was taken. Flags of 30 countries stood behind the leaders. One by one, they spoke. We must stand with Ukraine. We must protect Europe. We cannot look away. But behind every strong word was fear. What if Russia goes further? What if this is only the beginning? Across the border, in Russia, not everyone agreed with the war. Thousands protested in the streets. In Moscow, a young man named Artyom held a sign. It said, "No to war." Police came fast. They shouted, they pushed, they arrested. Artyom didn't fight back. He looked into the camera and said softly, "We want peace too. We are not your enemy." In Poland, thousands of Ukrainian refugees arrived, mostly women, children, old people. They came with nothing but hope. Some walked for hours. Some drove for days. Some had no shoes. Volunteers brought soup, blankets, and hugs. One Polish woman said, "My grandmother was a refugee in World War II. Now it's my turn to help." But the war didn't stop. Not in 1 week, not in 1 month. It spread to villages, to schools, to hospitals. The world watched and waited. Russia said it was protecting its own people. NATO said it was protecting freedom. Each side spoke loud. Each side warned the other. But the people, the normal people, they just wanted to live, to be safe, to see their loved ones again. And maybe that's the truth behind every war. Not who is stronger, not who is right, but who suffers the most, and who tries to keep hope alive. The spark in Ukraine lit a fire, and now the world must choose. Let it burn everything down, or find a way to make peace before it's too late. Chapter 4: Sanctions and Silence. The West used money instead of missiles. Sanctions hit hard. But did they stop the war? Russia found new friends, far from Europe. No bombs, no bullets, just numbers, falling fast. Banks closed. Flights stopped. Prices rose. In February 2022, after Russia invaded Ukraine, the West responded. Not with tanks, not with soldiers, but with sanctions. Sanctions are like a wall, not made of bricks. but of rules. Rules that say, you can't trade with us. You can't use our banks. You can't buy or sell. It's quiet, but powerful, and it hurts. Big Russian companies were blocked. Oil and gas deals were stopped. Planes could not fly over Europe. Russian money was frozen. The US, the UK, the EU, all took part. One by one, they said, "This is our answer. This is our pressure." In Moscow, the news spread fast. People ran to shops. They bought sugar, oil, toilet paper. They were afraid. The ruble, Russia's money, dropped in value. It was almost worthless. One woman said, "I saved for my daughter's wedding. Now my money is paper." But sanctions don't just hurt leaders. They hit everyone, even those who have nothing to do with the war. Maxim, a small cafe owner in St. Petersburg, used to sell Italian coffee. Now, the shop is quiet. His shelves are empty. "I didn't vote for war," he says, "but I'm still paying for it." Still, Russia did not break. It turned east, China, India, Iran. These countries didn't join the sanctions. They still bought Russian oil, still traded goods. Russia found new friends, far from Europe, and slowly the economy changed. It didn't grow, but it didn't fall apart either. In the West, some people asked hard questions. Are sanctions enough? Do they stop bombs? Or do they just create silence? Silence from Russian TV, which showed only one side of the story. Silence in the streets, where protests were crushed. And silence between people, who once talked and now turned away. Nina was a teacher in Paris. Her best friend, Katya, lived in Moscow. They met at a language school years ago. They used to send messages every day. But now, nothing. No more texts, no more calls. One day, Nina finally wrote, "Are we still friends?" No answer. Sanctions can freeze money. But can they freeze feelings? Can they stop war? Or just start new walls? In history, sanctions have worked. In South Africa, they helped end apartheid. In Iran, they stopped nuclear programs. But each country is different. Each moment is its own story. Sanctions are not bombs, but they are weapons, just quieter. So, what happens next? Do sanctions push peace or build more anger? The West chose money over missiles, but the war continues and silence grows. Sometimes the loudest sound is the one you don't hear. Chapter 5. Nuclear Words, Dangerous Games. Leaders spoke with cold eyes and heavy threats. Don't cross the red line. The world held its breath. Some words are louder than bombs. Some words can freeze time. This was one of those moments. On TV, a Russian general spoke slowly. Behind him was a map. No emotion in his face. Just this. If NATO enters, We will use all our power, even nuclear. The world stopped. People looked at each other and asked, "Did he really say that? Is this just talk or a warning?" The Cold War ended in 1991, but the weapons stayed, thousands of them. Russia has over 6,000 nuclear warheads. The U.S. has about the same. Even small ones can destroy a city. One mistake, one wrong move, and everything could change. In New York, people remembered the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis. 2 superpowers. 1 week. Almost the end of the world. That was history. Now it felt close again. In a school in Warsaw, Poland, children practiced a new kind of drill. Not for fire, not for earthquakes, but for something darker. "Go to the basement," the teacher said. "No talking, stay low, cover your heads." Some kids laughed, but others didn't. Anna, 12 years old, didn't laugh. Her father was in the army. She saw him packing his bag that morning. "I'll be okay," he said, "but if the sirens sound, listen to your teacher." In Russia, the message was different. Strong, proud, nationalist. President Putin said, "The West wants to destroy us, but we are not afraid." On state TV, they showed images of missiles. Big, bright, powerful. A talk show host smiled and joked, "London? Gone in 200 seconds." Some people cheered, others looked away. But behind closed doors, even leaders were worried. In Washington, one official whispered, "If this escalates, millions could die." A journalist wrote, "We are walking on ice, and it's starting to crack." Leaders tried to cool things down. The UN met. Talks began. Back channels were opened. Nobody wanted nuclear war. Not really. Not even those who threatened it. Still, the words had been spoken. And once they are spoken, they stay in the air. Like smoke. Like fear. In Finland, a teenager named Elias read the news. He was quiet for a long time. Then he turned to his mother and asked, "Can one person end the world with a button?" His mother didn't answer right away. Then she said softly, "That's why we need smart people. Brave people. People who choose peace." The red line is not just a line on a map. It's a line in our minds, a limit we must never cross. Nuclear war has no winner. Only loss. Only silence. And so, we wait. We listen. We hope. We pray the people with power also have wisdom. Because in the end, the most dangerous weapon is not the missile. It's the voice that tells the world, "Go ahead." Push it. Chapter 6. New alliances, new fears. China watches. India chooses silence. Finland and Sweden join NATO. The chessboard changes fast. The world is never still. It moves. It shifts. Like a storm. Like a game. After the war in Ukraine began, Lines were redrawn. Old friends stepped back. New ones stepped forward. And the map of power changed. In the West, fear grew. What if Russia attacks again? What if we are next? In the North, two countries made a choice. A big one. Finland and Sweden had always stayed neutral. No war, no sides, just peace. But now, things felt different. In 2022, Finland asked to join NATO. Soon after, Sweden did the same. It was historic, it was fast, and it made Russia angry. Russia shares a long border with Finland, over 1,300 kilometers. For years, that line was quiet. Now, with NATO there, the silence is gone. One Russian official said, "This is a mistake. They will regret it." But Finland replied, "We don't want to fight. We just want to be safe." Far away in China, leaders watched quietly. They didn't speak much, but their eyes saw everything. China is powerful. It has the world's largest army and a growing navy. It is close to Russia, but it also trades with the West. China did not take sides, at least not openly. They called for peace, but they blamed NATO too. One Chinese newspaper wrote, "The West caused this war, and now they pretend to be heroes." Was it true? Or was it just politics? In India, things were complicated. India bought weapons from Russia, but also did business with the US. The government said very little. They asked for dialogue and diplomacy. Some Indians protested the war. Others didn't care. For many, life was already hard, with poverty, food prices, and heat waves. "Let the big powers fight," said one man. "We have our own problems." And while the world watched Russia, other powers began to rise. Turkey made deals with both sides. Iran sent drones to Russia. North Korea spoke of support. It felt like everyone was choosing a corner, a side, a team. The chessboard was filling up, piece by piece. But in every game, there are people, real people, caught in the middle. In Stockholm, a boy named Leo asked his mother, "Are we in danger now?" She held his hand and said, "We joined NATO to be safe. But yes, everything is different now." In a school in Beijing, a teacher showed a map. He asked the class, "Who controls the world?" No one answered. New alliances, new fears, new games, and yet old truths remain. Power brings danger. Silence can be loud. And peace is not just the end of war. It is a choice, every day. So we must ask, who do we trust? What do we want? And how far will we go to feel safe? Because sometimes, when everyone builds walls, no one remembers how to build bridges. Chapter 7. Cyber War and Secret Battles. Not all wars are loud. In the dark corners of the internet, another war begins. A war with no flags. It starts with silence. No bombs, no tanks, just a screen, a password, a simple click. And then everything can change. In the 21st century, war is not only in the streets, it is also in the wires, in the code, in the cloud. They call it cyber war. It is fast, invisible, and dangerous. In 2022, just before the invasion of Ukraine, the internet went dark. Government websites shut down. Banks stopped working. Phones went silent. A cyber attack. From where? No one knew for sure, but many pointed to Russia. The group called Killnet attacked hospitals in Europe. Hackers hit schools, airports, and newspapers. They didn't wear uniforms. They didn't show faces. But the damage was real. One hospital in Germany couldn't access patient records. Doctors used pen and paper. One nurse said, "We were blind. We had to guess. It was like going back in time." In Washington, a small room glows blue. Screens line the walls. Men and women in headsets type quickly. They are cyber soldiers. No guns, no boots, but they fight every day. One click, and they stop an attack. One mistake, and power goes out in a city. Cyber war is not new. In 2007, Estonia was hit hard. Banks, TV, and police systems stopped. It lasted weeks. In 2010, a virus called Stuxnet hit Iran. It slowed their nuclear program. Cyber tools can be more powerful than bombs and quieter than spies. Even children are learning these skills. In South Korea, students take hacking classes. In the US, teenagers compete in cyber defense games. In Russia, some hackers work with the government. Others just want money or chaos. No borders, no uniforms, only the screen. But cyber war has a problem. It's hard to know who is attacking. One country blames another. The other country denies it. It wasn't us, they say. It was criminals. It was just a test. But the fear grows. In Kiev, a girl named Anya tried to log into her school. Nothing worked. Her mother shook her head. "It's not just war outside," she said. "It's war inside the system, too. Cyber war doesn't just hit soldiers. It hits teachers, doctors, mothers, you. It can turn off your electricity, lock your phone, steal your money, or change the truth. That's the most dangerous part. Information. Lies dressed as facts. Truth hidden under noise. Some people stop trusting everything. They ask, is this real? Or just part of the war? In the end, cyber war is not about machines. It's about trust, who we believe, what we know, and how we protect it. So remember this. Not all battles are fought with weapons. Some are fought with code, some with silence. And sometimes, the most powerful defense is not a wall, but a question. Chapter 8. Life on the Edge. From Poland to the Baltics, people are afraid. They hear tanks, feel cold winds, and remember, the past feels close. It's quiet, but not peaceful. The streets are clean. The sky is blue. But fear lives just under the surface. In Poland, in Estonia, in Latvia, in Lithuania. They are close to Russia. Too close. In these countries, the war in Ukraine feels personal. Too real. Too near. People hear news of bombs and tanks. They watch the border, and they ask themselves, are we next? In a small town in eastern Poland, Kasia walks her daughter to school. Every morning, she smiles, but her eyes show worry. She hears planes fly above. She sees more soldiers on the street. Her husband is in the army. He trains with NATO troops. They don't talk about war at the dinner table, but they both think about it every day. In Lithuania, an old man sits on a bench. His name is Thomas. He is 83. He remembers the past. When the Soviet Union controlled everything, when people disappeared at night, when no one felt safe. Now, he watches young people scroll on their phones. He hears them talk about the war. He closes his eyes and says softly, I've seen this before. After 1991, these countries became free. They joined the European Union. They joined NATO. They hoped the fear was over. But now, it feels like it's back. Real facts. NATO has sent more troops to Eastern Europe. In Poland, there are now 10,000 NATO soldiers. In Estonia, fighter jets train in the sky. These are not just games. They are warnings. Be ready. Stay strong. But life must go on. In Riga, Latvia, students still go to school. They study math, they play football, they laugh, but they also practice drills. What to do if there's an attack, where to hide, how to stay calm. One boy, Arturs, says, we play war games in the yard, but I know the real one is close. In Estonia, a teacher explains to her class, we are part of NATO. If one of us is attacked, all will help. The students nod. But one girl asks, what if help comes too late? The teacher has no answer, just a deep breath. In cafes, people whisper. At bus stops, they read headlines. Everyone is watching and waiting. Fear does not scream. Sometimes it just stands nearby, like a shadow. The past is not dead. In places like the Baltics, it's just below the surface. And still, people hope. They plant flowers. They sing songs. They light candles. Because even in fear, they choose to live. So ask yourself, what does it mean to be brave? Is it holding a weapon or holding someone's hand? In the end, life on the edge teaches us one thing. Peace is not quiet. It is courage every single day. Chapter 9. Diplomacy or disaster. Talks begin, then break. Hope rises, then falls. Can peace survive this new cold fire? A table? A flag? 2 cups of coffee? That's how peace begins. Not with cheers, not with headlines, but with quiet words in quiet rooms. In Geneva, in Brussels, in Istanbul, leaders meet. They shake hands, they smile for cameras, but inside, it's cold, hard, careful. Every word is chosen. Every sentence is a risk. Russia wants guarantees. No more NATO expansion, they say. No missiles near our border. The West replies, "We defend freedom." You can't tell others who to be. And the room grows tense. They take a break, then return. Talk. Pause. Try again. But the trust is gone. The bridge is broken. One diplomat says, "It's like playing chess with a bomb under the table." In a small house in Romania, Luca watches the news with his grandmother. He is 14. She is 84. They sit in silence as leaders speak. Luca asks, "Why don't they just agree?" His grandmother closes her eyes. She remembers the Cold War, the fear, the waiting. She says softly, "Because war is easier than trust, and pride is louder than peace." Facts are hard. Since 2022, over 30 peace talks have happened. Some by phone, some face-to-face. None have stopped the war. The UN calls for peace. So does China. So does the Pope. But peace needs two hands. If one hand is closed, nothing can be held. In Ukraine, people hope anyway. A man named Petro sends voice messages to his wife. She's in Germany with their son. Every night he says, "Maybe tomorrow. Maybe the war will end." Every night. She replies, "Come home safe. We're waiting." In the U.S., a reporter asks the president, "Can you stop this war?" The answer is not yes. It is not number. It is something in between. We will try, but we cannot promise. Meanwhile, diplomats fly again. To Berlin, to Beijing, to the UN. More meetings, more talks, more hope. But behind every smile is fear. Behind every speech is a warning. Because diplomacy is not magic. It takes time. It takes truth. It takes courage. And when one side says never, the door begins to close. Still, the world keeps trying. A student in Prague draws a peace sign on a wall. A woman in Tokyo lights a candle for Ukraine. A boy in Canada writes a letter to the UN. "Please stop the war. I don't like being afraid." So what happens now? Another talk? Another threat? Another promise broken? Or maybe a chance? Because the real battle is not only on the ground, it is at the table, between voices that build and voices that break. And in the end, if peace is to survive, someone must speak louder than war. Chapter 10. The Choice Ahead. The world stands at a fork in the road, war or wisdom. The next move belongs to all of us. There is a moment, just before a storm begins. The wind stops, the air feels heavy, and everyone holds their breath. This is that moment. Across the world, people are watching, waiting, wondering. Will there be more bombs, more lies, more fear, or something better? The war in Ukraine is still burning. Thousands are dead. Millions have left their homes. And still, leaders speak. Soldiers march. The future stays uncertain. But this war is not only about borders. It's about ideas, power, pride. One side says freedom. The other says respect. Each believes they are right. In Europe, the air feels tense. Old alliances grow stronger. New weapons are built. More troops are sent. In Asia, leaders are quiet, but watching. And in the US, the question grows louder. How far will we go? In a classroom in Berlin, a teacher shows a world map. She draws a circle around Ukraine. Then she draws two arrows. One points to war, the other to peace. She turns to her students and asks, "Which path will we take?" No one answers. Not yet. Real facts. Over $150 billion have been spent on weapons, defense, and aid. Over 8 million refugees have left Ukraine, and more than 100 countries have taken sides. But the war has no clear winner. Only loss. In Moscow, a boy named Yuri plays chess with his grandfather. They speak in whispers. Outside, the news is loud, but here, just silence and small wooden pieces. His grandfather says, "In chess, power is not just about attack. It's about the move you don't make." Yuri nods, but doesn't fully understand. Not yet. Meanwhile, in Kiev, a girl named Oksana draws pictures in a shelter. Bombs shake the ground, but she keeps drawing. One picture shows a sun. One shows a dove. Her mother says she still believes in peace, and maybe that's enough to keep going. So, what is the choice? It's not just for presidents, not just for soldiers. It's for all of us. When we speak, do we choose truth or hate? When we vote, do we choose peace or pride? When we see others suffer, do we look away or reach out? The world stands at a fork in the road. Left or right? Fight or listen? End or begin? No one knows what tomorrow brings, but today, we have a choice. And maybe the future is not built by leaders, but by moments, by people, by small, brave choices. Because in the end, war is loud, but wisdom is the voice that dares to speak after the guns go silent.